there are very few things that make me want to change things up on the channel, but this I saw and it got me a little, well, dare I say, a little antsy. And I just want to talk about it because the topic is something that grew me. I think they're a little bit wrong, but we're going to see. I read the article for this video, and I want to see if the not-written word is a little bit smarter. So with this, we talked about, I hope the Justice League Suicide Squad kills Justice League kills the shooter trend. So, yeah, let's just get into it. If I haven't even seen this video, I'll link it down below, but it's from IGN. So let's just take a gander and see for ourselves what we got here, huh? Shall we?
Yeah, looking forward to killing the Justice League and all, but well, you know, these guns are a bit shit.
For me, the disappointment of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League isn't just about its quality. It's about what it's not as much as about what it is. There's very little of what made developer Rocksteady's games so great in the past. Near unparalleled superhero power trips that sit alongside Insomniac's critically acclaimed Spider-Man series. It's also the latest in a frustratingly long line of beloved single-player championing studios delving into unwelcoming, loot-infested live service waters.
So I want to point this out, and this is something that I think the title doesn't do a good job of. The main crux of the article was so much the looter shooter genre. It's the live service looter shooter. And that's very different, because one of the things even someone in the comments talked about was Borderlands. Borderlands is a looter shooter. It's a single player looter shooter. It's not live series, and it's been done well. Borderlands 2 is 10 plus years old, still one of the best looter shooters out there. Hell, even Borderlands 3, which isn't even one of my favorites, is still a great looter shooter. The fact that they couldn't separate looter shooter from live service looter shooter is kind of interesting, but again, we'll continue on.
Nobody ever believes things can get this bad until it happens.
It's been a perilous leap for many to take, with success limited to very few not called Bungie. And I hope we're now at the end of this detrimental trend that's plagued so many.
Why is it so detrimental though? Like it's not.
In recent years, BioWare abandoned the comfort of its trademark deep RPG writing in favor of Anthem's cold, hollow, RNG-fueled exosuits.
Okay.
It was the first real notable example of this happening, a studio ripping apart from its roots to chase high-risk trends popularized by the likes of Destiny. BioWare veteran James O.
You want to know why they do this and why gaming developers do this? Is because it's just the way of the market, because people are playing it. People are playing games like Anthem, games like Apex, games like Valorant, because they're free at a base level. So trying to compare something like a $60 title that has this problem to something that's upfront free that you're paying for on the back end is, dare I say, ludicrous. Sorry, I skipped X. I hit 4.
With each passing year. Arcane brought none of its best-in-class level design and told Rock Paper Shotgun that Anthem was the ultimate expression of that. It got away from everything. It's kind of like the anti-BioWare game. There have since been others chasing these online looter shooter trends that have rapidly gone out of fashion with each passing year. Arcane brought none of its best-in-class level design to the empty vampiric streets of Redfall. Crystal Dynamics promised much in its Marvel's Avengers campaign, but lost its way completely regarding its live service offerings. And most recently, Rocksteady traded in their expertly designed Gotham for a shallow metropolis. Suicide Squad's main problem isn't in its art direction, character design, or storytelling.
Oh no, the story's bad. The story's very bad. It looks great, but it's just like the story was so bad it ruined like the Arkham Batman. And that was I think that was a video in itself, right? If I recall correctly, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Though mileage may vary on that last one. These are all things we've come to expect and enjoy from Rocksteady, masters of their craft when it comes to creating superhero open worlds. But while it has largely delivered on that trio of creative disciplines, the studio's other notable strengths, best-in-class campaign design, genre-leading combat systems, and engaging open worlds are the areas in which Suicide Squad has stumbled. And that faltering is rooted in the pivot to creating a long-time content delivery machine, aka a live service shooter. In the 9 years it has taken the London-based studio to finish work.
Yeah, but what is long time? Because like live service games like Madden and NBA The Show only have a shelf life of what, a year before it gets repeated. I don't think this thing can last 6 months.
Kill the Justice League, numerous examples of exactly the same kind of pivot project failing have come and gone. Yet,
For the record,
no change of
I should say this on the front. I don't think paying for loot boxes to get weapons is a good business model or ethical. I just wanna put that out
direction
there.
has seemingly been botted.
When it comes
That's
to like
likely because of the
other
weight
stuff,
of the
it's fine.
AAA machine. Like a heavy cruise liner, it can be difficult to change the course of all those resources and staff when the journey begins. But the result of that is a wholly incongruous mess of a looter shooter where bland gunplay makes neither canonical
Not a
sense nor an engaging gameplay
not
loop.
bland gunplay. It's just the nature of the beast.
This'll make my boomerangs jealous.
No,
Sorry, ladies.
It's quite literally
Gear
just
progression and
it's
how it
just
intertwines with talent trees and class
nature of-
abilities is a delicate balance that is by no means easy to achieve. The Borderlands series has
Here we go.
historically done it very well,
Yep.
and while the Pandora Gunfests do
But they
have
have-
significant stories told throughout, you always get the feeling that developer Gearbox's focus is on making the most outrageous and fun arsenal to play with as possible. But Borderlands games are, of course, not live service. Tackling
Correct.
that added demand of
They're
a
not.
long life of ever-expanding content adds a whole new weight on top of all that to balance. A more pertinent
the thing I want to talk about, and they've briefly mentioned Borderlands, is sort of like the ones that does it well. The thing with Borderlands and what makes Borderlands so interesting is how the building is in that game, because it's all there for you. The only thing you really have to buy in terms of skill trees is, I think, one of the DLCs for Borderlands 3. And you don't even necessarily need it to get the full extent of Borderlands to be played, right? You know? And they do it well. Why? Because the single player is just the replayability is there. That should be your sort of focus is that in itself, not the latter.
An example
You know.
then might be Diablo, which has achieved this as successfully as anyone over the years thanks to Blizzard, a studio whose very DNA is built around online multiplayer experiences. For almost 30 years, the developers
Shocking.
refined a gameplay loop completely centered on chasing that next piece of loot. That
Shocking.
desire to want to come back repeatedly and grind for the next piece of gear is key to the success of a loot-based game, and is what I look for over all else in the genre. Strike gold with that, and even games that possess just a sliver of Rocksteady's storytelling chops, such as 2021's Outriders, can keep me engaged enough to keep playing thanks to fun
the game
weapons and
Borderlands
abilities.
players would
One-note
do,
combat is a common thread between all of these recent failed
when
experiments.
Wonderland started to fail.
Redfall's selection of identikit weapons didn't offer anywhere
Did
near the
Redfall
sort of
even get
malleable
better?
approaches that Dishonored's blades and powers brought to encounters. Although Marvel's Avengers heroes did each have a set of abilities intrinsically linked to their character, the rote defend and capture objective scenarios you were placed in offered limited thrills.
Yeah, welcome to
Anthem's mission
RTSs.
design was near non-existent as you jetted
Dude,
around its open world
people
searching for any semblance of BioWare's famous quest writing. Rocksteady created one of the most influential combat systems in the form of Batman Arkham's counter
Combos, baby.
flow. And to step away from this and create a gun-based looter shooter was a bold move. Sadly, it just didn't
thanks,
pay
Destiny.
off. Each gun feels fundamentally very similar to the next and last, with interesting perks and alternate fires kept at a real.
So this is something I think Borderlands did very, very well. Is how like unique weapons, legendary weapons, white weapons, whatever, they all were intrigued, and it's like you can farm for so long because you want to get like the perfect sort of variant for it, and that's just part of it, right? And that's just part of it, whether it's live service or not. Like that's just the beater. Is like it's a lot of rinse, washing your feet. It's a lot of grinding, and if you can't do that, well, there's other games for you.
Premium. The least you'd expect from a looter shooter is to have interesting loot to shoot with, but the focus on that in Suicide
define
Squad
loot.
just isn't
Or
quite
define
there.
exciting.
Guns for us now, Bird Brain.
It's your lucky day.
Wow, they really.
I'm
make
all for
all
developers
like that.
trying something new in an attempt to avoid things becoming stale, but successful new beginnings are rooted in a recognition of historic strengths. I wish Rocksteady had used its previous top-tier melee combat, dense open world, and thrilling storytelling experience as a base, rather than shifting to what is an almost entirely different development format.
Okay,
This
if you want to
challenge is
go
something
that
to its
route,
credit that Sony has managed well with
but if you want to go
PlayStation
that route,
Studios.
that's a different
Time is
story
given
because
to
that's
each
necessarily
creative
what
team
they
to make the
necessarily
project
want.
they want to make, with story-driven
Right.
single-player games remaining a dominant focus. Naughty Dog has become the standard bearer for this philosophy in the years that Rocksteady
That's a
spent
bold
making
move.
Justice League. But that isn't to say they didn't attempt
That's
to branch
bold.
out to multiplayer in that time either, with Sony recently cancelling a
That's a
Stuttering
bold
The Last
move.
of Us online project. We'll never know how this would have turned out, but if recent history has told us anything,
Rocksteady's not
halting
exactly
development before it rumbles
Naughty
on for
Dog.
years might have been the right move by PlayStation, something confirmed by Naughty Dog itself in the statement announcing the cancellation.
Now, granted, I do want to make this one point. When it comes to like games like The Last of Us, I think they're more cinematic games, which is very story driven, where it's not so much about the story in of itself. Or the gameplay rather. It's about the story and the gameplay that just sort of like intertwines with that, which is totally different. That's like the same thing as like the Star Wars games now. They're cinematic games. It's mainly story driven narrative with gameplay elements in it. It's not this reckless or like gameplay heavy, driven thing that is that. Like, these are cinematic games. These aren't like games, if that makes sense.
The studio said, to release and support The Last of Us Online, we'd have to put all our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come.
That's very true. Depending on how long you want to go for it. Depending on how long you want to do it.
Two paths in front of us: becoming a solely live service game studio, or continue to focus on narrative games that have defined Naughty Dog's heritage.
You can do both. You can run both at the same time,
if approached in a sensible and measured manner.
I mean, Bethesda's done it. I wouldn't say well, but Bethesda's done that.
And trying something new and dipping their toes into the water
for sure.
Head first.
Because the whole thing is live service things aren't going to go anywhere.
Sucker Punch's Legends expansion to 2020's Ghost of Tsushima was a well-constructed online co-op offering rooted in its fundamentally exciting sword combat. The experience
seems like we're complaining about combat
for an experimental DLC,
right?
Offering a small but rewarding pool of gear for progressing through missions, which culminated in a challenging multi-part raid full of memorable art direction. The key, though, was that this focus was narrow, adding a handful of hours of multiplayer fun.
Narrow on what?
Already solid single-player base. I still want to see more Sucker Punch single-player stories, but this smaller scoped experiment has at least given me confidence that they can make the looter-shooter live service jump where others have fallen. Maybe it would have been
because there's a base
to test out some of Suicide Squad's online components in an Arkham Knight expansion before fully implementing those.
I think that's hard for us.
Later. Unfortunately, it's still unclear to see how
because of
those
that.
who leaped have fallen. It can't be a coincidence, though, that these studios all find themselves reverting back to what made them such respected names in the single player space. Because
it worked. It was simple. It was concept to paper worked. Having everything there and then building, expanding outwards is way easier. When you're building upon something that's not necessarily the strong base, but more ever flowing, or something to that, to that regard, is there, as much as we want to say like, oh, that's bold and thought provoking and new, there's a difference between being like, we have a core, we want to expand upon the core, and well, we're going to throw it to the wolves and hope it sticks. Like that's the difference. Like, you can have best of both worlds. Borderlands first, you can have best of both worlds with looter shooter. It's just a matter of how do you build it. Like I said, the issue that I'm hearing is live service, not looter shooter. Because there's, like I said, Borderlands is one of the better games when it comes to looter shooters, especially like single player.
BioWare is hoping to recapture that story-driven RPG magic with new Dragon Age and Mass Effect games in development.
I'm sure Dragon Age will do well.
The tunnel with Marvel's Blade being helmed by their Leon studio, a stealth combat game that hopes are high for.
Yep, looks good.
Finds itself under the parasitic control of Embracer Group, who has seemingly done nothing but cancel projects and lay off staff since making their huge financial gamble. I hope the Tomb Raider studio manages to survive and thrive again.
I mean,
I sympathize with all these developers, none of whom set out to make games that would go on to be considered dead on arrival.
Well, it's the problem when games aren't made by gamers, when games are made by guys in the product industry. We talked about this in the podcast episode that's coming out Monday. We talked about that it's no longer this games for gamers. It's tech guys making games and all that stuff. It's no longer, we know what gamers want. Why? Because we play them. This is what we want. It's marketing guys. It's sales guys. It's people who just are like, how do we get the most money out of this? Which again, isn't a problem. It's just, you're just going to run into, bases of oddities.
Instead, I
right?
need to be turned towards those making the decisions, whether these be studio heads, publishers, or other executives, on what type
it's
of
just
games
people
these
who don't know what they
studios
want.
make. The list of previously mentioned
Right.
failures to launch should be the wake-up call needed to stop mismanaging talent
people-
and siphoning their passion.
But
into
also, too, the
projects.
biggest thing is like, are people buying it? The answer is yes. They're going to keep making it, no matter how loud the minority voices are. They're going to say, "Well, our sales were there." Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League got refunded at record levels, so that might be the wake-up call.
Benefit neither the developer's skill sets nor
But-
the player's ultimate enjoyment. It's
but,
a
you
lesson
know-
that Warner Brothers seemingly never learned with Kill the Justice League, although hopefully one they've now
Now
learned,
they did.
Considering Suicide Squad's questionable success comes not long after
Questionable.
the news that WB's own Hogwarts Legacy, a single-player open-world story-driven
Yep,
game,
is getting-
happened to be 2023's biggest-selling game. It's
Yep,
too
and
soon
that's-
to
I
say
think they're
what's
also getting
next for Rocksteady, which
DLC,
still
but-
has the
oh
first
well.
steps of its live service roadmap to make when Joker arrives as a playable character next month.
Yeah, good
Suicide
lord,
Squad
that
could
looks
buck
so
the trend,
bad.
becoming a huge success that grows strong as the months
They'd
and
have to
years
change
go
a
on.
lot. We'll see.
I
but-
have my doubts though. I just hope it does well enough that a studio home to so much
Oh,
single
gosh.
talent is allowed to spread its bat wings again.
They're gonna have to do another
For more on
Batman game.
Suicide Squad,
but-
check out our
oh,
review, and for everything
oh
else,
well.
Kill the Justice League, stick
But we'll see. So that was Kill the Justice League. Or hope, I hope Suicide Squad kills the Curse Looter Shooter. I think they brought up some decent enough points, but like I said originally, I think the problem lies with live service games, not so much the sheer genre. Like if they said Borderlands is still well regarded as one of the better games. Why? Because it's so simple. But hey, what the heck do I know? Let me know your thoughts down below. Is it really just it's just live service like I think it is, or is it more to it, or kind of diving into this a little bit too much? I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think those sheer genres fine. It's just a matter of they need to get back to what made it great. What made it great? Interactive storytelling and fun guns, because there's nothing funner than making your opponent splatter. Right? That being said, my name is Spects. I'll see you guys all